What's the good word, It's your boy DKB here. So we're breaking down some of the last prospects from this New York Jets 2023 undrafted free agent class. One of the final weapons, if not the final weapon, that we signed as part of those 13 members. And this is the undrafted free agent who had the biggest guarantees from Joe Douglas. $250K in the bank for Jason Brownlee, for a guy that is a long shot to not only make the roster, but potentially even remain, if not reach, the practice squad. So we'll see how that ultimately pans out. Ideally, in my mind, if he's as good as what Joe Douglas and them think they've got, he's probably a Denzel Mims type replacement, fifth or sixth in the wide receiver rotation. Probably going to be inactive if he was able to make a 53-man roster for a while, but not a guy I really expect to hear about until a year or two down the line, with how we stack things up in terms of our weapons and the priority of who's going to get the lion's share of targets and all that kind of stuff. So either way, Jason Brownlee is the prospect. Southern Mississippi, 6'2", 198 pounds, began his career in East Mississippi Community College before he ended up making the transfer to Southern. And one of the things that hyped me the most is all of the projections thought that he was going to be an early day 3 prospect, 4th round pick, 5th round potentially. At the lowest end, I've really seen 6th round. Some people say UDFA for sure, but for the most part, they thought he had hear his name called pretty early, day 3. So that got me hyped. The thing that got me down was when I seen one of the pro comparisons, they mentioned Laquan Treadwell, the Vikings wide receiver who infamously did almost nothing for them for the longest, right, as a former first-round pick. We have the luxury of him being an undrafted free agent for us. So at least the kind of perceived perception that he should have been a strong day 3 signing gives me a lot of hope with a guy like this for what he's bringing. So when you take a look at kind of what the lead up has been for him and what would have made him a day 3 prospect, really it was the NFL BPA, I think. One of the bowl games that he was preparing for anyways, where he was really able to make a lot of noise. Led the nation in receptions, 75 in 2019. Led USM in receiving 2020, 2021, and 2022. And then he had a big show out at the Lending Tree Bowl as an MVP over Rice. So kind of has been able to slowly but surely stack up a lot of positive momentum for himself heading into the NFL draft. And things just didn't work out for him, right? So what was very enticing about a guy like Jason is he's generally, I don't want to say purely a boundary receiver because they've used him in a slot, but you're effectively looking at a boundary receiver here, which is great. Great catch radius, borderline elite, capable of making contested catches. To be honest, his game is kind of built around his ability to haul in these ridiculous catches in traffic. Not only is it a huge plus to his game, ironically, it's also a huge problem in his game as well, but we'll dive into that. So, good hands versus press coverage when it comes to being able to open up his releases, break off the line of scrimmage pretty effectively for the most part. He high points the ball, uses that explosiveness between his broad jump and what he was able to put out there in order to win a lot of those catches. He's hauling in stuff over the shoulder, showing that he can track the ball pretty effectively when he's working that intermediate to deep range of the field. And he's aggressive working back to the ball. That's one of his best traits, the physicality. He almost plays like he's a defensive guy out there for the most part. And same thing, physicality can kind of work against him a little bit. But pretty good ball control, a lot of quality adjustments in the air to make sure he can bring in some of these passes using his catch radius that are way above where he should need to get to, behind him, in front of, etc. Right? Sneaky after the catch ability. He's not going to be a demon at this level. He wasn't, in the Sun Belt Conference either. But he's a guy that I think can kind of, falsely give some confidence to a lot of defenders that, he's just going to be a strictly possession style receiver in the NFL, which will probably largely be his role. But he's definitely a guy that can kind of abuse you a little bit if you end up giving him too much leeway. As far as some of the things holding him back from potentially being drafted, lackluster route running skills. Not necessarily that he's terrible, but very inconsistent in between how he will run even the same route over the course of a game. But he is, decent enough at this in this regard. Doesn't understand leverage though when he's using his route running. So even if he gets a good release, even if he can beat his guy early in the route, he'll ultimately put himself in a position where it still ends up being, a contested catch for him. Which again is part of that problem that I really wanted to highlight with a guy like Jason Brownlee here. Run blocking is subpar, so for a guy his build, his size, you would expect it to be a little bit better, but it's definitely lackluster. He's not going to stretch the field consistently. Ran something like a 4.59 40. Definitely kind of plays a little bit quicker than that, but he's not going to be a burner. He can attack the deep field, but that's not going to be a huge part of his game and what a team should ask him to do. You can see part of that physicality gets to him when he's pushing off at the top of a lot of his routes. And so you like to see him be able to create some of that separation just using his footwork, altering his speeds, different things like that. He uses his length of all things to try to get it done. And that's something he'll probably get flagged for a lot more often at the NFL level. Not a consistent hand catcher. Not too bad of a problem considering all of the contested catches and stuff that he's put out there, but something he still wants to kind of hone and work on. Not a lot of special teams experience, so this is kind of that Denzel Mims conversation where you have the skill set to probably be a strong wide receiver in the NFL, but how are you going to hang around on a roster when you haven't necessarily been asked to do the dirty work to be a part of the team, right? And then generally a lack of play strength with a guy like Jason Brownlee here. Not that he gets bullied, not that he hasn't gone out there and kind of dominated some reps, but generally at 6'2", just shy of 200 pounds, you think he'd be able to go out there and kind of, beat his cornerback out of the play. Doesn't have to maul him. He's not an offensive lineman, but you'd expect that he'd win a lot more of those particular reps than he does. But overall, this is a guy that can kind of jump out the gym. You get excited about all of the contested catches you see, even though it's the lack of route running ability that's kind of put him in a lot of those situations. So maybe he'd be even better yards after the catch player if he was more effective in that area. So we'll see how that develops. But I'll take a guy with strong hands, that can jump 10 feet in the air with an elite radius every day of the week to try to develop and see what we can do with him. So let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Potentially is still here. Should have been an early day 3 prospect. We get him as an undrafted free agent. Granted, we give him a decent amount of change. But, curious what your guys' thoughts are, and I'll get you again. Peace.